The lake was calm that morning. Sunlight danced across the water and the sound of birds filled the quiet air. The wooden cabin stood by the shore, its porch facing the lake. For most people, it was just another small home. But for Armin and his wife Mira, it was their dream place. They had saved for years to buy this cabin. Life in the city had been noisy, filled with endless meetings and crowded streets. Armin worked long hours in an office, while Mira stayed busy teaching. Both wanted peace, a place where they could breathe freely. So when they finally bought the lake cabin, they felt like their wish had come true. Armin parked the car near the porch and the couple stepped out. Their dog, Bruno, jumped happily onto the grass, running in circles. Mira laughed as she carried a small basket inside. "This is perfect," she said softly, looking out at the water. The neighbors were quiet at first. Some waved politely, while others only glanced from a distance. Among them was Karen, the head of the local homeowners association. She lived 2 houses away, in a large white home with neat fences. Karen believed she controlled everything around the lake. She checked lawns, measured fences, and even complained about the color of mailboxes. Most people stayed quiet, not wanting to argue with her. When she saw Armin and Mira arrive, Karen stood at her window with a frown. She did not like changes in her neighborhood, and she especially disliked anyone who did not ask her permission first. Later that evening, while Armin was setting up chairs on the porch, Karen walked over. Her steps were sharp and her voice carried across the yard. "You must be the new owners," she said without a smile. "Yes, we are," Armin replied kindly. "I'm Armin, and this is my wife, Mira. We're glad to be here." Karen's eyes moved over the porch, the small garden, and even the chairs. "I hope you are aware that there are rules in this community," she said. "No loud music, no changes to the exterior without approval, and pets must be kept under strict control." Armin nodded patiently. "Of course, we understand. We just want a quiet life." Mira gave a polite smile, but inside she could already sense the tone. Karen was not welcoming them. She was warning them. That night, as the couple sat by the bar, lake watching the stars, Armin said, "We should be careful. She seems like someone who looks for problems." Mira nodded. "Let her think what she wants. We came here for peace, not to fight." The next few days went smoothly. Armin worked on small repairs inside the cabin, while Mira planted flowers by the porch. Bruno loved the open space and often played near the water. The couple felt happy, enjoying the freedom they had long dreamed of. But Karen was watching. Every time Bruno barked, she wrote something down in a notebook. When Armin painted the porch railing a fresh brown color, Karen shook her head disapprovingly. And when Mira set wind chimes near the door, Karen muttered to herself about noise, pollution. One afternoon, Karen stopped them again. "I hope you filed the paperwork for these changes," she said, pointing at the railing. "It's just fresh paint," Armin replied calmly. "Still, it should go through the association," Karen said, firmly. "Rules are rules." Mira stayed quiet, but her eyes showed a mix of annoyance and patience. By the end of the week, the couple noticed that Karen was spending more time near their property than her own. She even told other neighbors that she would make sure these new people follow the law. Most neighbors simply shrugged and stayed out of it. They had seen Karen do the same before. On Sunday morning, the peace of the cabin was broken. Armin was preparing breakfast when flashing lights appeared at the end of the driveway. 2 police cars stopped and officers stepped out. Mira looked out the window in surprise. "Why are the police here?" she asked. Before Armin could answer, Karen's voice rang out loudly. She had walked out of her house and was pointing toward their cabin. "Officers, this is the place. I told you they're violating community rules. You need to inspect their property right now." Armin's hands tightened around the pan he was holding. Mira stood tall, calm but alert. Bruno barked near the porch, sensing the tension. The officers looked at the cabin, then at Karen, then back at the couple. Karen folded her arms, certain she had won. She expected the officers to walk straight in and demand explanations. But what happened next was something she never imagined. Karen's voice was sharp as she pointed at the cabin. They are breaking rules, officers. You must inspect immediately. I cannot let them ruin the neighborhood." The two police officers exchanged a quiet glance. Officer Malik, a tall man with a calm expression, stepped forward. "Ma'am, can you tell us exactly what the problem is?" Karen waved her notebook in the air. "Everything. The paint, the garden, the decorations. They did not ask permission. This is a violation of the community rules." Armin came to the porch, holding Bruno on a leash. "Good morning, officers. We are happy to answer any questions. We have been careful to follow the rules," he said politely. Mira stood beside him. Her posture was straight, and her voice was calm but firm. "We respect the rules and the neighborhood, officers. Can we understand what this inspection is about?" Karen scoffed. "They are lying. I have evidence. I will show it to you." She opened her notebook and flipped pages quickly. "See? These are the notes I took. I measured the railing. I counted the flowers. This is a violation." Officer Malik took the notebook gently and glanced through it. "Thank you, ma'am. We will review this. Sir, can we see your property? Inside and outside?" Armand nodded. "Of course, everything is ready for inspection." As they walked around the cabin, Karen followed closely, pointing out minor details. "The railing is too high. These flowers are too colorful. And the wind chimes. They are against the quiet rules." Mira smiled slightly. "Officer, I think the decorations are small and respectful. We have tried to keep everything neat and peaceful." Officer Malik nodded. He seemed more interested in observing the couple than listening to Karen. The second officer, a younger woman named Officer Sana, checked the garden carefully. "Everything seems in order," she said softly. Karen's frown deepened. "What? Are you ignoring the rules?" Officer Malik raised a hand calmly. "Ma'am, our job is to make sure safety laws are followed. Community preferences are not something we enforce. Unless there is a real violation, there is no reason for a formal complaint," Karen gasped. "But they are clearly breaking rules. I demand action." Mira stayed calm. "We understand that rules are important. We will make adjustments if there is something unsafe, but we have not done anything illegal." The officers finished their inspection. Malik walked to Karen. "Ma'am, after checking everything, there is no violation. The cabin is safe and nothing here breaks the law. Your complaint cannot be acted upon." Karen's face turned red. She opened her mouth to argue, but Officer Sana interrupted. "One more thing. Ma'am, the homeowner's wife." Karen froze as Officer Sana gave a crisp salute toward Mira. Mira's eyes widened slightly, but she returned the salute naturally. "Thank you," she said politely. Karen blinked in shock. Her face went pale. She had expected the officers to side with her completely, not to acknowledge the couple in this way. The salute was a sign of respect, a symbol of authority she had never imagined. Armand looked at Karen calmly. "She is a veteran, officers. Served the country with honor. That's why you saluted her." Karen opened her mouth, but no words came. Her notebook fell from her hands and she stepped back. The neighbors, who had been watching quietly, now murmured among themselves. Some whispered in admiration. Officer Malik smiled lightly. "Ma'am, we enforce laws, not personal preferences. It is clear that these homeowners are following the rules and respecting the neighborhood. That concludes our inspection." Karen turned sharply and stormed back to her house, muttering angrily. She had expected victory, but instead faced humiliation. Armand and Mira watched silently as the officers left. Bruno barked once as if celebrating the small victory. Mira finally spoke. "I hope she understands now. We are here to live peacefully, not to fight." Armand nodded. "Yes, but I think she will be more cautious from now on. At least she knows we are not ordinary neighbors." The sun reflected on the lake and the couple stood together holding hands. The calm water seemed even brighter, and the gentle breeze felt like a reward for their patience. They had faced the first challenge, and together, they knew they could handle more. Karen, however, was still fuming behind her closed curtains. She could not imagine that her complaint would end this way. For the first time, she felt powerless in her neighborhood. After the police left, Karen sat in her living room fuming silently. Her mind raced as she tried to understand how her complaint had failed. She had called the cops, shown her notes, and expected them to act immediately. Instead, they had saluted Mira and dismissed her concerns. She could not accept it. She needed to prove that the new neighbors were not following her rules. With determination, she grabbed her phone and called a few of her closest neighbors. "Did you see this?" she asked sharply. "The police did not even consider my complaint. Those people are hiding something. We cannot let them take over our lake community." Meanwhile, back at the cabin, Armin and Mira unpacked boxes and set things in order. Bruno ran along the wooden deck, sniffing every corner. The cabin was quiet again, and the couple felt safe, for the moment. "Do you think she will try something else?" Mira asked. Armin shook his head slowly. "Karen likes to feel in control. She will keep watching us, but we have nothing to hide and we will stay calm. That is the best way." Later that afternoon, a delivery man arrived with gardening supplies. As he placed the boxes near the porch, Karen appeared at the edge of the property, her eyes sharp and calculating. "You cannot put anything here without my approval," she called out. Armin stepped forward. "We are not breaking any laws, we are just placing some supplies for our garden." Karen frowned. "I will be watching. Everything must follow the community standards." The delivery man looked uncomfortable, but Mira smiled and thanked him. Karen stormed back to her house, but she was already thinking of her next move. A few hours later, she returned with a tape measure. She walked to the edge of Armin and Mira's property and began measuring the distance from the cabin to the lake. "This is too close to the shore," she muttered. "They might be breaking the rules about water access." Mira approached her calmly. "We checked the regulations before buying this cabin. Everything is within limits. If you want, we can show you the official documents." Karen's eyes narrowed, but she paused. Mira opened a folder and handed her the paperwork. Karen flipped through the pages quickly. Everything was in order. "This cannot be," Karen said under her breath. She felt embarrassed, but did not want to admit it. "I will find something else," she muttered as she left. That evening, the couple decided to enjoy a quiet walk along the lakeshore. The sunset painted the sky in shades of orange and pink. Bruno ran ahead, chasing small birds and jumping in the water. "This is why we came here," Mira said, her voice soft. "To enjoy this peace, even with people like her around." Armin smiled. "We will handle her calmly. She wants control, but she cannot control us. We follow the rules, and that is all that matters." Karen, however, was far from done. She visited neighbors one by one, spreading rumors that Armin and Mira were secret rule breakers and troublemakers. Some neighbors were curious, while others simply shook their heads. Karen had a reputation for being overbearing, and most people were wary of her complaints. The next morning, Karen decided to take her actions further. She called the police again, insisting that the couple was still violating community rules. She claimed she had noticed new decorations, slightly taller flowers, and even the way the cabin's curtains were hung. Armin and Mira were calm when the second set of officers arrived. Officer Malik greeted them with a smile. "Good morning. We understand there is another complaint." "Yes," Karen said sharply. "They are breaking more rules now. Inspect the property again." Officer Malik glanced at Armin and Mira, then at Karen. "Ma'am, we already checked. Unless there is a safety violation or illegal activity, there is nothing for us to enforce. We will do a routine check if you like, but we do not expect any issues." Karen's eyes widened. She expected the officers to be furious at the couple, not politely asking if she wanted them to check again. As Officer Malik and Officer Sana walked through the property again, Karen trailed behind, muttering about hiding things. She was tense, nervous, and unsure of how to act. The calm and confidence of the couple frustrated her. Mira noticed Karen's reaction and whispered to Armin, "She does not know how to handle respect and honesty." Armin nodded. "Let her learn the hard way. We are safe. and we follow the rules. That is all that matters. By the time the officers finished their inspection, Karen looked exhausted. Her anger had not diminished, but her confidence had. She realized she could not force people to act against others without reason. As the couple returned to the porch, Bruno sitting happily between them, they watched Karen retreat to her house, muttering quietly. The lake shimmered in the early evening, light, and the cabin felt even more like a sanctuary. The next morning the lake was quiet, with mist rising gently from the water. Armin and Mira stepped outside to enjoy breakfast on the porch. Bruno sat obediently near Mira, his tail wagging lightly. For a moment the world seemed peaceful. Then, as if on cue, Karen appeared again. She carried a clipboard this time and walked toward the cabin with determination. Her eyes scanned the property as she approached, looking for anything out of place. "Good morning," Armin said politely, holding his coffee. Karen did not respond. She cleared her throat and said, "I need to inspect everything. I will not allow these violations to continue." Mira smiled calmly. "Officer Malik already checked our property twice, and there were no violations. Perhaps you can come later, when you are ready to discuss things calmly." Karen's frown deepened. "I will not wait. I have the authority as the head of the homeowners association. I must inspect now." Armin nodded. "We respect that, but inspections are meant to be fair. You already know our property is safe and legal. What else do you need?" Karen hesitated for a moment, then muttered, "I will find something. You cannot hide everything." At that moment, a police car slowly arrived at the entrance of the cabin. Officer Malik stepped out with Officer Sana. "We received another call from the association," Malik said calmly. "We thought it best to check in." Karen straightened immediately. She pointed toward the cabin. "See? I told you. They are still breaking rules." Officer Malik raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, as before, we will review the property. We only enforce safety laws and legal regulations." Karen's face tightened with frustration. She did not expect the officers to remain calm or impartial. She wanted them to agree with her, but their professional behavior only made her more tense. As the officers approached the porch, Karen leaned forward, expecting a confrontation. She looked at Mira and Armin, ready to accuse them of wrongdoing. "Officer," Sana paused suddenly and saluted Mira. "Ma'am," she said respectfully. Karen froze. Her mouth opened slightly in shock. She had seen the salute before when police interacted with veterans or officers of high rank, but she could not believe it was happening to someone in her neighborhood. Mira returned the salute with calm dignity. "Thank you," she said softly. Armin smiled at Karen quietly. "She served in the military. That is why the officers are showing respect." Karen's knees felt weak, and she took a step back. Her face had turned pale. The neighbors who had gathered near their own homes watched, in astonishment. Some whispered to each other, unable to believe what was happening. The officers looked around and then addressed Karen. "Ma'am, we enforce safety and legal rules. Your concerns are noted, but this property follows all regulations. We cannot act on personal disagreements or preferences." Karen tried to speak, but no words came out. She looked at the couple, at the salute, and then at the watching neighbors. Her confidence had vanished, replaced by confusion and embarrassment. Mira spoke gently, her voice calm and strong. "We respect the rules of the community and the law. We only wish to live peacefully. There is no need for conflict." Karen swallowed hard. She had thought she could intimidate the couple with her authority and complaints, but she had never encountered such respect and calm in return. The realization stung more than she expected. Officer Malik nodded at the couple. "Thank you for your cooperation. That concludes our visit." The officers left, leaving Karen standing stiffly near the edge of the cabin. Bruno barked lightly and ran to Mira's side. She petted him, smiling gently at the dog. Karen turned and walked back to her home without a word. Her anger remained, but so did a strange feeling of respect mixed with fear. She could no longer act boldly without consequences. Arman and Mira watched the lake for a few moments, enjoying the quiet. "That went well," Mira said, taking a deep breath. "She will think twice before causing trouble now." Arman nodded. "Yes, but we should stay calm. She is not done yet. Still, we handled this with patience, and that is what matters most." The sun reflected off the water, and the gentle waves lapped at the shore. For now, the cabin was peaceful again. Bruno lay down happily at their feet, and the couple shared a quiet smile. The first major challenge in their new life had passed, but the lake held more surprises for them in the days to come. The morning sun shone brightly over the lake. Arman and Mira stepped outside with Bruno following closely. The air smelled fresh, and the water reflected the light in gentle ripples. It was peaceful again, but Karen's shadow lingered nearby. Karen had spent the night thinking about the previous day. She could not believe that the police had saluted Mira. Her anger had cooled slightly, replaced with curiosity and unease. She needed answers. Who was this woman who could command respect with just a salute? By mid-morning, Karen decided to confront Mira directly. She marched to the cabin with her usual confidence, but this time there was a careful tension in her step. When she reached the porch, Mira was watering the small flower garden, her movements calm and deliberate. "Good morning," Mira said politely, looking up. Karen ignored the greeting. "I want to know who you really are," she demanded. "You cannot just get respect like that from police officers. What are you hiding?" Mira smiled gently and set the watering can aside. "There is nothing to hide. I have served in the military. That is why the officers saluted me. I followed the law and I earned respect through my service." Karen blinked, trying to process the words. "Military? You mean, you are a veteran?" "Yes," Mira replied calmly. "I served for many years. That is why I am trained to stay calm and handle situations like this. I respect the rules and the law, and I expect the same in return." Karen took a step back. Her mind was spinning. She had assumed she could intimidate this couple, but now she realized she was facing someone experienced, disciplined, and confident. Her notebook, her complaints, her authority. All of it seemed small in comparison. Arman stepped forward, placing a hand gently on Mira's shoulder. "She served her country, Karen. That is why the officers saluted her. It is a sign of respect for her dedication and discipline." The neighbors, who had begun to gather quietly nearby, murmured in surprise. Some had heard the salute the previous day but did not know why it had happened. Now they understood. Mira was not just any newcomer, she was someone who had earned respect through service and courage. Karen's voice shook slightly. I did not know." Mira nodded kindly. "It is not about showing off or proving anything. I simply follow the rules and live with integrity. That is all that matters here." One of the neighbors, Mr. Rafiq, stepped forward. "Karen, I think you should understand. These people are honest and respectful. Complaints should be about real problems, not personal preferences." Karen's frown deepened. She realized the neighbors were not supporting her this time. Instead, they were quietly acknowledging the couple's honesty and Mira's service. The balance of power had shifted. "Do you mean to say that you have no violations?" Karen asked, her voice smaller than before. "No," Mira said gently. "Everything here is safe and legal. We came here for peace and we will continue to follow the law. That is all we ask in return." Karen looked at the cabin, the flowers, and the neat porch. She had spent days trying to find fault, but now she saw clearly that there was nothing to complain about. Her frustration mixed with admiration, though she would never admit it aloud. Arman smiled and offered Karen a small gesture of friendship. "We do not want enemies here, Karen. If you follow the rules and respect us as neighbors, we can all enjoy this community together." Karen hesitated. The tension in her shoulders slowly eased. For the first time, she realized that power was not about rules or threats. It was about respect, honesty, and integrity. The neighbors began to nod in agreement, some even smiling at Karen quietly. They could see that her authority over the Lake community was being tested, and that the couple had handled the situation with grace and patience. Karen finally spoke, her voice soft. I understand. I will try to respect your space. Mira smiled warmly. That is all we ask. As Karen walked back toward her house, she felt a mixture of defeat and understanding. She had learned that respect could not be demanded. It had to be earned. Armin and Mira returned to the porch watching the sun shine over the lake. Bruno lay down happily, enjoying the warmth of the morning. The couple held hands, feeling a sense of peace and accomplishment. They had faced the challenge together and had shown that honesty, courage, and calmness could overcome tension and fear. For the first time since arriving, the cabin felt completely like home. The next morning, the lake was calm, but Karen was not. She had spent the night thinking about Mira's service, the salute from the police, and the quiet respect the neighbors now showed the couple. Her pride had been wounded, and she felt powerless. She could not simply accept that she had been wrong. Karen decided she needed one last attempt to assert control. She dressed carefully, grabbed her clipboard, and marched toward the cabin. Her steps were firm, but inside, her mind was racing. When she arrived, Armin and Mira were setting up a small table on the porch for breakfast. Bruno ran around happily, sensing nothing unusual. Good morning, Mira said warmly, noticing Karen approaching. Karen stopped a few feet away. I have one final inspection to make sure your property is truly following all the rules, she said sharply. Armin looked calm. We have nothing to hide. You are welcome to look around. Karen began measuring the porch, checking the flowers, and even looking at the curtains inside the windows. Her movements were precise, but her anger made her fumble slightly with the tape measure. Mira watched silently, her calmness a stark contrast to Karen's tension. Armin stood nearby, holding Bruno on a leash, ready to step in if necessary. After several minutes, Karen stepped back, exhausted and frustrated. She could not find a single rule that had been broken. Every measurement, every detail followed the community regulations perfectly. Before Karen could speak, a car pulled up. Officer Malik and Officer Sana stepped out. They had come to check, again after Karen's repeated complaints. Karen's eyes widened. You are back? She demanded. See? There is still a problem here. Officer Malik smiled politely. We are here to ensure everything is safe and legal. As before, we will inspect if you wish. Karen's frown deepened and she nodded reluctantly. The officers walked through the property with calm professionalism, noting the flowers, the porch, and the cabin itself. When they reached Mira, Officer Sana gave another crisp salute. Karen froze immediately. The salute had the same effect as before, but now it was repeated, emphasizing Mira's authority and respect. Mira returned the salute with a calm nod. Thank you, she said quietly. Karen's face turned pale. She had expected chaos, complaints, or mistakes, but instead she saw discipline, respect, and order. She realized she could not intimidate this couple, no matter how many inspections she demanded. Officer Malik addressed Karen firmly but politely. Ma'am, this property is safe, legal, and in full compliance with the rules. There is nothing further for us to act upon. Continued complaints without cause may be considered harassment. Karen's knees felt weak. She could not respond immediately. She looked around and saw neighbors watching from their homes. Some whispered to each other, quietly noting how Mira and Armin handled the situation. Karen realized she no longer had the influence she thought she did. Mira stepped forward. Karen, we respect you as a neighbor, but we expect the same in return. We are here for peace, not conflict. Let us all enjoy the community together. Karen's hands shook slightly as she dropped her clipboard. She could feel the eyes of the neighborhood on her, and for the first time, she understood that respect could not be demanded. It had to be earned. Armin spoke gently. There is no need for more inspections. We are happy to follow the rules and live peacefully. That is all we ask. Karen took a deep breath and finally nodded. I understand, she said quietly. I will respect your property and your peace." The officers gave a small nod and returned to their car. As they drove away, Karen watched silently, feeling a mixture of relief and embarrassment. She had tried to assert control, but she had been defeated by honesty, calmness, and respect. Armand and Mira stood on their porch, holding hands. Bruno barked happily and ran in circles. The sun reflected beautifully on the lake, and the gentle breeze seemed to carry a sense of triumph. For the first time, the couple felt fully at home. Karen had learned her lesson, and the neighborhood had witnessed the strength and dignity of two people who only wished to live peacefully. The cabin by the lake was finally quiet, a place where calmness, respect, and understanding ruled. The couple smiled at each other, knowing that the hardest part of their new life was behind them and the future looked bright. The days after the final inspection brought a new calm to the lake cabin. Karen no longer appeared at the edge of their property, and the neighbors began to smile politely when they passed Armin and Mira. The couple finally felt the peace they had dreamed of when they first bought the cabin. One morning, Mira stepped out onto the porch with a cup of tea. Bruno ran ahead, chasing small birds along the grass. The sun reflected on the lake, painting the water with golden light. Armin joined her, carrying a small basket of fresh fruit. "It feels different now," Mira said softly, looking around. "The tension is gone." Armin nodded. "Yes, we handled everything with patience and honesty. People have started to see that we only want to live peacefully." As they spoke, some neighbors walked by. Mr. Rafik waved, and a few others smiled. Even Karen's house seemed quieter, as if she had retreated into reflection. The couple realized that their calm and respect had not only protected their home, but had also earned the quiet acknowledgement of the community. Over the next few weeks, Armin and Mira worked on small improvements around the cabin. Mira planted new flowers along the porch, carefully arranging them to match the natural surroundings. Armin built a small wooden bench near the lake, where they could sit and watch the sunset. Bruno loved the bench, often lying nearby as if guarding the couple. Neighbors began to stop by occasionally, asking questions about gardening or offering advice about the area. They were curious but respectful. One neighbor, a young woman named Layla, came over with a small tray of baked goods. "I thought you might like some treats," she said with a smile. "It is nice to finally meet you properly." Mira thanked her warmly, offering a small cup of tea. Armin joined in the conversation, laughing softly as they talked about life by the lake. For the first time, the couple felt fully accepted, not as outsiders, but as part of the community. Even Karen, though still cautious, began to change. She watched quietly from her window as Armin and Mira helped a neighbor carry a heavy box, and she noticed how patiently they interacted with everyone. Slowly, she began to realize that respect and patience could achieve more than complaints and control. One evening, the couple decided to have a small gathering by the lake. They invited the neighbors, including Mr. Rafik, Layla, and a few others who had been friendly. Karen watched from her porch, hesitant but curious. The gathering was simple but warm. Armin and Mira prepared food and drinks, and everyone sat together by the water, enjoying the cool breeze and soft sounds of the lake. Bruno ran happily among the neighbors' children, bringing laughter to the evening. Karen stayed on her porch at first, but after seeing the peaceful gathering, she finally stepped closer. Armin and Mira noticed her and nodded politely. Karen returned a small nod. She did not speak much, but her presence signaled a quiet truce. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with pink and orange hues, Mira whispered to Armand, "We finally have our peace." It was not easy, but we stayed calm and it worked. Armin smiled, holding her hand. "Yes, we faced challenges, but honesty and respect always win. This is our home now." The neighbors lingered, talking quietly, sharing stories and laughing. Karen watched silently, slowly learning to admire the couple's patience and integrity. The lake reflected the sky, calm and beautiful, mirroring the new harmony in the neighborhood. For Armin and Mira, life at the cabin had reached the balance they had dreamed of. They had faced suspicion, complaints, and tension, yet they remained kind, patient, and honest. Their courage and calmness had not only protected their home, but had also changed the community around them. As the stars appeared in the sky, the couple sat on the wooden bench by the lake, holding hands. Bruno lay happily at their feet. Their water shimmered, reflecting their sense of peace and accomplishment. They smiled at each other, knowing that this was only the beginning of a happy and peaceful life by the lake.